I am such an advocate of doing this. I cannot recommend enough that everybody get out there and do lots and lots and lots of YouTubes. And easy. It's not. I mean, it's a little tricky. There are a few technical bugs in there to get together, but what the YouTube position, the perceptual position, of course, is the F2 position. And I don't know anything available right now. There may be something that I'm not aware of that allows you to have as consistent access to yourself in F2. This is like the perfect F2 machine. It's like some divine gift came down and just gave mankind the capacity to go F2 in ways that mankind has not been able to go F2 before. So that's really, really important. I think that's a part that's hard to get. It's a tricky piece to get in a lot of NLP, is really, really high quality feedback loop F2-ness. So one little axiom I'd like to present you with is you're only as good as your feedback loops. Really, you're only as good as your feedback loops. So let's expand here a little bit. I mentioned Grinder, I mentioned DHE, I mentioned collapsing, DHE, John Grinder, DHE, and Richard Bandler, Richard, John, claps, woof. John, Richard, claps. Collapsing the clapping. Why do we want to do that? Well, okay. I'm just, I'm freewheeling it. I am coming up with my own NLP. There's no rule that says I can't, and there's every motivation and inclination to do it. Just to say, hey, I want to invent my own stuff. I mean, just totally do my own stuff based on the available tools and models. Come up with my own thing. Can you think of a reason that I shouldn't, or you shouldn't, or anybody else shouldn't? And how much more interesting it would be if there were lots and lots of people out there very actively making stuff, making all new things. So where I kind of developed this project from was my intense early interest that was kind of triggered by my early experiences in NLP with the communication between the hemispheres and the possibility that the right hemisphere might actually wake up in a way and take on a more of a semantic nature. It's now known that the right hemisphere does have some weak and limited speech properties, and in some very early and powerful meditative experiences I had in my early 20s, like around 23, 22, I powerfully experienced this thing that was in the Milton Erickson's literature, his Transinduction with Aldous Huxley, where he experienced the brain actually functioning as two fully operational, fully conscious, fully self-contained, conscious awarenesses, as if one had two whole selves, two whole identities, two whole brains, both perfectly integrated through the corpus callosum and the commissures, and at the same time completely and fully separate, as he said, apart of and apart from, able to act as co-consciousnesses. And instead of saying, well, we had an unconscious and a conscious, the unconscious is kind of silent and back there and whatever and mysterious, and the consciousness is up here in front and semantic, it became a different deal. And I became quite aware, and I'm not sure how this ties into the many, many long traditions of meditative awareness, that the mind could actually awaken. You could go into a state of awakenness, or a higher state of utilization of both parts of the brain as co-conscious, co-selves. That happened to me, and then it kind of faded, and I kind of rejoined the real world. But then I always wondered from that experience. I was in a burning curiosity, and I think that's the absolute foundation, the absolute fountainhead of my intense curiosity that I still have about all this, is how I entered this state of separable co-consciousness that at the same time we're somehow integrating into a unified consciousness, and at the same time being two separate, fully sort of embodied, fully sort of contemplative selves that could take on different contemplative positions of the same subject at the same time. It was absolutely, I was floored. I was amazed. It was as if I had just walked out of reality as I knew it, and this wasn't like some kind of cheapo drug experience or something. It's like walking into a totally new capacity to represent reality in more dimensions, like a higher dimensional representation of reality. So that's the basic. That's the thing that kind of really got the whole avalanche rolling from the up on the very top of the mountain till it turned into this other thing with me. So that's where I'm going to expand from. And so take that as my first kind of my first piece. That's the beginning, and then we'll talk about how that sort of moved into my take of NLP.